Hello. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Very good morning. Aditya and Gunashekar.
Good morning, sir.
Okay. So, have you attended previous two classes? No, right?
Sir, previous class we didn't get link, sir.
Okay. What about Aditya? You were
Same,
traveling,
sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You were traveling, so you could not attend.
Sir.
Okay, fine. Today, we'll quickly go through the different commands once again. Actually, we had completed module 4 and we left with only fpipe command. Since participants are different from each class, I am repeating the concepts. Okay, once again, I will repeat quickly and what is required for your examination purpose, I will explain and I will cover the syllabus and I will try to complete the entire syllabus. Actually, today I had only left with the discussion of 10 minutes with respect to F5. But since due to various reasons you could not attend, I will uh, uh, recap the things that we had discussed earlier. Screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
So we are in the, hello, is it right, right? You are able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, if you are having a syllabus, you can see. Otherwise, I will just explain you in the module 4. We are having Unix commands, Unix command lines. That means we are talking about Unix command line arguments. Friends, you have written Java program, right? Java program you have written? Some Java program?
Yes, sir.
So in that you have written after successfully compiling the program Java hello you will write right to run the Java program. And suppose if you are giving hello how are you as the arguments, you'll be reading arg.0, arg.1, arg.2. It is nothing but command line arguments. So similar to this concept, the Unix shell is used to run commands. So there you are having Java interpreter. Here Unix shell is used to run commands and it allows users to pass runtime arguments. You when I say Java program, definitely you'll come to know how the command line arguments can be given. These arguments are known as command line arguments. So your Unix commands works under this. I had already repeated and I had told in the previous two classes to remember some of the basic Unix commands to explain the Unix commands. So here so many commands are given, but you can focus on one sample like how I am going to explain in the same way. So Unix commands extends the power of commands by using a special flags or switches. These switches are one of the most powerful features of Unix commands. Switches are usually preceded with a dash on files. ls command list your files. ls dash l list your files in long format which contains lots of useful information. Example, the exact size of the file, who owns the file and who has the right to look at it when it was last modified, all this information. So here, as we have told, ls dash l. So this dash indicates if the command is using a special flag or switch. Again, switch is similar to your C++ or C case of a switch. Upon satisfying the condition, it will go to the different cases, switch case statements. So that means switch, when you say switch, it has got alternate. So remember these some of the commands. And then file compression command. Unix command line arguments can also be used for file compression. For example, ggip file name. If you write ggip command and the file name, what happens? It compresses the file, and obviously the file will take less space. Usually if it is a text file, about half of it will be compressed. If it is the video and audio file, compression cannot be 50%. It varies depending upon the content of the file as well as the program that is being used for the purpose of compression. In case of Unix, ggip produces the file with which is ending with gz appended to the original file name. If I give hello as the file as an input for the compression, gz produces hello.gz. Similarly, ungzip file name uncompress the file compressed by ggip. Like this, you have to remember some two commands. Directories, you are well familiar with some basic commands like mkdir and directory name, cddir or cd directory name, pwd. So just go through these commands, and ff find files anywhere on the system. This can be extremely useful if you have forgotten in which directory you put your file, but do remember the name. In fact, if you use ff-p, you don't even need to know the full name, just the beginning. This can also be useful for finding other things on the system. Okay, so these are the things that you have to see for Unix command lines in case of your module 4. Okay, next topic in your module 4 is Backtrack Linux. Backtrack Linux was a Linux distribution that focused on security based on the Knopex Linux distribution aimed at digital forensics and penetration testing use cases. Now, Backtrack Linux is called as Kali Linux. Earlier, before March 2013, it was being referred to as Backtrack Linux. The purpose of this software is to aim at digital forensics and penetration testing. In module 3, I have explained you what is digital forensics, right? So Backtrack Linux or Kali Linux, so you can have a version of this to work on Ubuntu based platform. It has several features. You have to at least should be able to name them. Demonstration of Kali Linux, they won't ask in the examination. However, what are the features a Backtrack Linux or Kali Linux supports? You should know. So there are 12 categories of tools in the Backtrack Linux. That's a information gathering tool, vulnerability assessment tool, exploitation tools, privilege escalation tool, maintaining access tool, reverse engineering tool, RFID tools, stress testing, forensics, reporting, services, and miscellaneous. So, what are these tools? Briefly, if you are able to explain, it's enough with respect to the different categories of tools available in the Backtrack Linux. So Backtrack, as the history says, was developed between 2006 and 12 by the offensive security team. Version up to 3.0 were based on Slack, and then 4.0 it has been moved to Ubuntu as its base. The last version of Backtrack is 5R3, which is available in two flavors, Genome 2 and KDE, both for i686 and AMD 64 CPU. So since 2013, this is renamed as a Kali Linux. So this is with respect to the Backtrack Linux. Mac ports, this is another topic in the module 4. Since I am revising them, I am quickly going through it. And Mac ports, what are Mac ports? There will be one question. And of course, all these things are going to be asked in the context of Linux or Unix. Mac ports are formally called as Darwin ports. Mac ports were formerly called as Darwin ports. It's a software, a package management system. Mac port is a socket, is a package management system that simplifies this package management system simplifies the installation of software on the Mac OS and Darwin operating system. So it was specifically designed for these two operating system, and it is a open source software. It's a open source software. Means you can add your own code and you can customize as per your requirements. It simplifies installation of the other open sources, as I already told. So this is with respect to the Mac ports. What are Mac ports? Write short notes on Mac ports. Similarly, there is one more topic in the fourth module, SizeWin, CYZ SizeWin. I call it as a SizeWin. It is a collection of GNU and open source tools which provides functionality similar to a Linux distribution on Windows. A SizeWin is a DLL file. So sizewin.dll, which provides the substantial POSIX API functionality. CJ is not a way to run native Linux apps on Windows. It's not a way to magically make a native Windows apps aware of Unix functionalities like signals, etc. You need to build your own apps from the source if you want to take advantage of SizeWin functionality. The SizeWin DLL currently works with all recent commercially released versions of Windows, especially with x86 underscore 64 versions, starting with the Windows Vista. SizeWin version is DLL 3.1.4 is the latest version. You can go to Google and you can see, look for setup dash x86 underscore 64.exe to install latest version of the SizeWin. Keep in mind that individual packages in the distribution are updated separately from the DLL, so that SizeWin DLL version is not useful as a general SizeWin distribution release number. And this is with respect to the SizeWin. Next is netcat commands. Netcat utility program supports a wide range of commands to manage networks and monitor the flow of traffic data between the systems. So it is to monitor and the flow of traffic between the system, netcat software. Computer networks using, including the World Wide Web, are built on the backbone of transmission control protocol and user datagram protocol called TCP and UDP in short. This information is known to you. Okay, the netcat uh, can work both on TCP and UDP. Netcat will be having various commands for port scanning. So you can say netcat can be used for port scanning. It can be used for creating a chart or a web server because most of the internal internal communication within the organization, they want to have a simple text kind of chart which is confidential and secured. In such cases, netcat will help you to create a chart or web server. It can do verbose scan with netcat commands. So different kinds of scan you can do. HTTP request can be made with netcat commands. TCP server and TCP client commands can be used. Item with netcat commands. DNS lookup with netcat commands. So these are the certain uh, possible functionalities that are, we can say, characteristics that netcat command can exhibit. You can know some basic commands since particular specific commands are not given in the syllabus. Again, you can go for the basic netcat commands to give some examples. Once you have netcat application set up in your Windows or Linux server, you can start running basic commands. nc-help, for example. This command will print a list of all possible available commands you can use in netcat. So that will be helpful for you to see how you can use different commands and hence how you can utilize different features of netcat. nc-z-v site.com will run a basic port scan of the specified website or server. Netcat will return verbose results with the list of ports and statuses. Keep in mind that you can use an IP address in place of the site domain. So nc-l, this command will instruct the local system to begin listening for TCP connection and UDP activity on a specific port. Right? So these are some of the basic commands you can use. Fine. Uh, so just go through these things. As I have already told you, you can create a chart or web server using the netcat commands. Chart programs are often of interest since even though wide range of different tools for charting is available, generally enterprise organization, as I've already told you, looks for some secured simple text kind of chart applications. Using netcat commands you can create such things. So please go through the various commands of the netcats. Netcats are given in more detail. Just you can have a look at them, and you need not remember all the commands explained here. Some of the commands, just to demonstrate or to explain clearly the netcat, you can remember. So different things are given here. Okay. The next topic in the syllabus. Module 4 is SSH secure shell. SSH secure shell. SSH or secure shell is actually a SSH protocol. It's a cryptographic network protocol. It's a cryptographic network protocol, and that is used for transferring encrypted data over the network. It allows you to connect to a server, multiple servers, without having you to remember or enter your password for each system, that is to log in remotely from one system to into another. When we say SSH is a cryptographic network protocol, immediately that comes to our mind is public and private keys, because keys are used for encryption and decryption purpose. If same key is used for both for encryption and decryption, we will say symmetric key, and different keys are used means asymmetric key. Generally, public key is used for encryption and private key is used for decryption. Key which is private need not be protected. It can be made known to everyone. When we say key is private, it should be protected, should be kept confidential or securely. Key pairs can be of the following types: user keys, host keys, and session keys. User key if public key and private key remain with the user. Host key if public key and private key are on a remote system. Session key used when large amount of data is to be transmitted. We can go in with respect to SSH in depth, because still whatever I am giving here, I hope it is sufficient. And please remember that the SSH is a cryptographic network protocol which is asymmetric and performs encryption and decryptions. And there are many encryption methods, and SSH basically looks at RSA, DSA, and ED 25519 algorithm. I repeat, SSH is a cryptographic network protocol which is asymmetric in nature, performing encryption and decryption, and mainly it looks at RSA, DSA, and ED 25519 algorithm at large. As you are aware, RSA is a abbreviation for Revist Shamir and Adelman, is a algorithm used by modern computers to encrypt and decrypt messages. It's an asymmetric cryptographic algorithm. Asymmetric means there are two different keys called public key and private key, but asymmetric key cryptographic algorithms are also referred as public key cryptographic algorithm. Asymmetric key algorithms are also referred as public key cryptographic algorithm. As I have already told you, DSA is another algorithm used by SSH, and in fact, this algorithm DSA works in the framework of public key crypto system. Public key crypto system. Public key crypto system means it's not that only public key is used. Public key and private key both are used, and is based on algebraic properties of modular exponentiation. Please see what are the different algebraic properties of modular exponentiation is used together with the discrete logarithm problem. So these words you need to write as it is in your examination. That is best when you are explaining DSA algorithm. Actually, you will not be asked to explain DSA or RSA or ED22519, but they'll ask you to explain SSH, since SSH is given in your syllabus. But while explaining SSH, you may have to explain RSA, DSA, and ED 22519. Coming back to the DSA, the DSA, discrete mm, sig- uh, discrete signature algorithm or digital signature algorithm, is key uses a key pairs consisting of public key and private key. The private key is used to generate a digital signature for a message, and such a signature can be verified by using signer's corresponding public key. Digital signature provides message authentication. That means receiver can verify the origin of the message. Digital signature provides integrity. The receiver can verify that message has not been modified since it was signed, and non-repudiation sender cannot falsely claim that they have not signed the message. So this is with respect to the DSA. And some lines of information better to remember with respect to ED 25519. ED 25519 is a public key signature with several attractive features. This also public key algorithm, but it is a fast, okay, we can say very fast signing algorithm. It can generate the keys very quickly. Highest security is provided. Foolproof session keys it can have. Its collision resilience, okay, and these things are the important characteristics of ED 25519. Some points you have to remember. If you attend the class, it will be easy for you to know what actually you have to focus as per your syllabus, or at least a later point of time you should listen to the class which will be uploaded onto the YouTube. That will help you to look at and focus on what is important. And when we are explaining, for example, SSH, we cannot skip explaining RSA, DSA, and ED 22519. But as per the syllabus, as per the scope of study, we'll cut down it. General procedure, we look at the general procedure of SSH. Public keys from the local computer are passed to the server which is to be accessed. The local machine will be having the keys, generations. In that case, server then identifies if the public key is registered. If so, the server then creates a new secret key and encrypts it with the public key which was sent to it via local computer. This encrypted code is sent to the local computer. This data is unlocked by the private key of the system and is sent to the server. Server, after receiving this data, verifies the local computer. SSH creates a route and all the encrypted data are transferred through it with no security issues. And SSH is not prone to brute force attack. That is guaranteed. However, we are not sure of other kinds of attacks for which we can guarantee, and this is the general procedure that you need to remember with respect to SSH. Next, in your syllabus you are having a data pipe. Before going to the data pipe or F pipe, we have to just recall pipe. Since you have already studied Unix, they may ask pipe, or it may be very important to recall what is a pipe system call at this point of time. That's why I'm having this slide. Pipe, a conceptually, pipe is a connection between the two processes that is used for inter-process communication. Unix operating systems are useful for Unix operating system pipes are useful for communication between related processes, inter-process communication. Pipe is one-way communication. That means one process write to the pipe and the other process reads from the pipe. Two processes cannot write simultaneously into a pipe. Of course, it uses some main memory. So pipe is a virtual file in the main memory. The pipe can be used by creating the process. Once a pipe is created, its child process can also use the same pipe for reading and writing. If a process tries to read before something is written to the pipe, the process is suspended until something is written. Pipe system call finds first two available positions in the processes, open files table and allocates them for the read and write ends of the files. This is the simple block diagram that explains the pipe, and this is the pipe concept process. It can write and it can read, right? So this is how we can use the pipe. Pipeline, data pipe and pipeline. So say almost the same thing. Pipeline is a mechanism for inter-process communication using a message passing. A pipe is for reading and writing purpose. Here, message passing, we'll say. A pipeline is a set of processes chained together by their standard streams. Pipeline, when we say, this chain of pipes, we can say. So that output text of each process, std out, is passed directly as input to the next one. The second process is started as the first process is still executing, and they are executed concurrently. The concept of pipeline was championed by Douglas at Unix ancestral home of Bell Labs during the development of Unix. It is named by analogy to a physical pipeline. A key feature of this pipeline is the hiding of internals. This is in turn allows for more clarity and simplicity in the system. Okay, and this explains how pipeline can be done. So when we say pipe, interprocess communication, communication between the two programs, simultaneous communication between two or more programs, where program 1 output is connected to program 2 and program 2 output is connected as input to program 3, and all these programs can have a display for displaying standard errors and have to display std out, and keyboard std in can be connected to program 1. So with this setup, with this architecture, we can have the pipeline. Please remember to write this diagram whenever the pipeline is asked. In a pipeline, in computing, is referred as data pipe. Okay, in computing, a pipeline is referred as data pipe or data pipeline. Data pipe is mentioned in your syllabus. To explain that, so far we had introduction with respect to what is pipe, what is pipeline, when data pipe is called, all these things. So a data pipeline is a set of data processing elements connected in series, where the output of the element is the input of the next line. The concept is the same. Elements of a pipeline are often executed in parallel in time sliced fashion, and some amount of buffer storage is often inserted between elements. So computer related pipelines, which are referred as data pipelines or instruction pipelines, graphic pipelines, software pipelines, and HTTP pipelines. You can look at these as example of data pipelining. Pipelining is commonly used concept in everyday life. For example, in the assembly line of a car factory, each specific task such as installing the engine, installing the hood, and installing the wheels is often done by a separate workstation. The station carry out the task in parallel. each on a different car. Once a car had one task performed, it moves to the next station. Variations in the time needed to complete the task can be accommodated by buffering. That means holding one or more cars in a space between the stations, or by stalling uh, until the next station becomes available. So, this is the concept of pipelining. Pipelining does not create latency. So, please understand that if for your interest or to have some more understanding, design consideration is given. So, you can go through it. And I don't think a design consideration of the data pipeline is required for your as per your syllabus. This is for just to go through point of time, point of view. So just you can go through it once. F pipe is another important concept. Unix systems always seems to provide most useful network tools. First, data pipe. First, the Unix system is always seems to provide the most useful network tools first. Data pipe we have seen now. Data pipe is a little more than 100 lines of C code, a trivial amount in the Unix world. Before SizeWin and data pipe, no options for Windows-based port redirection were available. F-pipe by Foundstone implements port redirection technique. So you should say F-pipe is a port redirection technique natively in Windows. It also adds user datagram protocol UDP support which data pipe lacks. So what is the difference between F-pipe and data pipe? Data pipe is not supported by user datagram protocol, whereas F-pipe is a data pipe with or plus support of the user datagram protocol. F-pipe does not require any supports DLL or privileged user access. However, it runs only on the NT 2000 and XP platforms. The lack of support DLL or similar files makes it easy to pick up f5.exe and drop it onto a system. F5 also adds more capability than DataPipe in its ability to use source port and bind to specific interface. DataPipe's usage is simple. F5's increased functionality necessitates several more command line switches dash v dash verbose mode for example. Verbose mode is a word being used everywhere. A verbose mode is an option available in many computers, operating system including Microsoft Windows, Mac OS and Linux. It provides additional details as to what the computer is doing and what drives and softwares it is loading during the startup. Verbose logging is a computer logging mode that records more information than usual logging mode. Simply, verbose means more words than necessary. That means verbose mode, you can do many things than the necessary. Verbose logging options are usually enabled specially for troubleshooting because they create large log files and can slow down performance. Okay, so today we have revised the Unix command lines, backtrack Linux and Mac ports and SizeBin netcat commands and SSH. Netcat users also we have seen what, for example, creating a chart server, web server, right? So many things. SSH, data pipe, and F pipe. Hello, you are there, Sridhar?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Gunashekar and Aditya.
Yes, sir.
I, sir.
Okay, pa. So what are the things required? What are the notes given required for your examination? All these things I have given. All my PPTs are the notes only. Treat the PPTs as notes. Keep them. Okay. Uh, for every test, I am sending the notes also. In fact, since the second test was announced to be conducted, was supposed to be conducted by 17th, 18th, 19th, since students require some more time for the preparation because of various problems, we can understand the certain problems inherently coming along with the online classes. That's why we have postponed the test, and already I have revised the portions of the test 2, and I have told what are the possible questions, how questions of MCQ type can be answered. Is it right? Have you
Yes,
seen
yes,
the
sir.
department YouTube revision classes? Please
Yes,
go
sir.
to the revision classes. Since already the revision classes is the repetition of the class in the perspective of the test, how MCQ question can be asked in the on the particular topic. I don't think it is necessary to take again revised classes for the test two, since revision classes itself is the repetition of the previous classes. Yes, right? Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please refer to those classes. For test 3, we have to conduct descriptive test. For that, I will revise the test 3 portions. Okay, I will tell you how because test 3, suppose if VTU conducts the examination, that will be descriptive only. They may increase some choices to write, but you should be able to answer descriptively. In the two test, you are answering on the just you'll be clicking. I don't know how, what is the capacity or your skills to write the answers at the level of application and analysis. Okay, so better to have the descriptive test. So what type of questions, how we will ask the questions, the and repetition and revision of the test 3 portions I will do. Please attend those classes. As of now, for today, your entire syllabus for the cyber security gets completed. Okay, so is it right, Aditya? Hello, hello, Aditya is there? Hello, Aditya.
Yes, sir.
Gunashekar.
Hello.
So today, by
Yes,
today,
sir.
we have completed the complete
Yes, sir.
syllabus of cyber security. Okay, and I had conducted revision classes of test 1 also, test 2 also. For test 2, you can refer to the revised classes. Still, if you want the class, okay, for the test 2, I can take, that is not a problem. For test 3 will be descriptive, I'll be conducting the revised classes. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So please send your opinions, and if you want some topic to be revised in the WhatsApp group of cyber security, you can message it. We'll have the class. As of today, I'm not saying I'm not going to take the class. I'll be still continuing to take the class. I'll be informing you in advance by sending the link. But for today, we have completed the all the topics in all the syllabus. So I'm having the syllabus copy with me, right from the first unit up to last unit. More than 35 classes I have taken, and videos are available in the YouTube. Please go through it. So, do you agree with me that the portions and syllabus is completed? Hello, Sridhar.
Yes, sir.
Gunashekar.
Yes, sir.
Gunashekar is there? Okay. Thank you. I wish you all the best. Don't worry about the examination, but keep preparing your studies. And any question, any problem, any notes, I think if you are having material,
Hello. 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 Hello, sir. Hello.
so please come to the chat box. I'm I have switched on the mic, but somehow it's not. You're not able to.
Okay, sir.
It's on only. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So all notes I have sent on the WhatsApp group. Just after this class, I will be sending this PPT also. Please note that
Okay, sir.
some of the topics are in this environment in the class. What
Okay.
topics of nature? Example, when we are explaining SSH, the SSH using our did not go in depth with respect to the RSA and its drawbacks. And this is not a subject for cryptography and network solution or network security. However, we should know uh, the working of the algorithm, but working and design of the algorithm, they may not ask. Whatever I have explained with my knowledge and experience, I think that is sufficient. If you find any questions in the syllabus, okay, please come to me. If you are having any question papers which is not covered in the class, please come to me. I will explain and we'll have an interaction. Be confident and keep preparing whatever
Okay.
your teacher says. Definitely you will clear the subject and get promoted to the next semester. I wish you all the best for all of you.
Sir,
Murugesh.
sir, sir. Sir, it is possible to explain about examination point of view questions by module wise, sir.
Yeah, I will explain. That's I will do definitely because descriptive test we have to conduct. No, descriptive third test is descriptive. That time I will
Yeah,
come
sir.
through all the modules. Now
Okay, sir.
the
Okay,
first
sir.
for first test MCQ I have revised the class. For the second test
Yeah, yeah, sir.
MCQ I have revised the class. You go through it. For the third
Okay, sir.
test,
Okay.
which is descriptive, as you told, I will come from every module from examination point of view,
Okay.
what type of question they may ask. Okay, keeping your main exam in mind and keeping your third test, which is descriptive in mind, I'll explain once again all the modules.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All the best.